Good afternoon. My name is Corey Barnett, and today I will talk about the painting The Four Continents, created by Peter Paul Rubens in 1650. Rubens brought energy, sensuality, and drama from the Baroque art period not only into religious works, but also to historical and mythological themes. According to the New World Encyclopedia, the Baroque style was led by Italy, but eventually found its way to the Mediterranean, followed by most of the Holy Roman Empire in Germany and Central Europe. The Baroque style was most prevalent from 1590 through the early 18th century. Artists such as Michelangelo, Diego Velázquez, Rembrandt, and Peter Paul Rubens used direct, obvious, and dramatic images to get emotional reactions from patrons. Works of this time featured painted scenes and people as the casual observer's eye would see them. Natural with what some might consider body flaws, such as curvy, more full-figured women. Paintings illustrate the physicality of the men, connecting the viewer physically and psychologically. The Four Continents depicts both of these common Baroque traits, as women are shown with fuller and more voluptuous figures, while men appear strong, warrior-like with respect to the physique. Artists of this time focused on the basic nature of the scene with lifelike figures, real poses, and the flow and movement of pieces illustrates continuous overlapping of figures and elements. Rubens has very real, direct, and obvious figure appearing to be on top of one another, keeping the flow of the piece while bringing out raw emotion. As noted in chapter 16, the age of Baroque in literature, art, and music by Marvin Perry, the dramatic use of vivid color makes the painting more pleasing to the eye, as well as assisting in the dramatic contrasts between light and dark, light and shadow, heightening the drama and meaning behind the work. Baroque artists often use themes of death or intense psychological moments. Rubens shows babies near the mouths of crocs and tigers, almost forgotten by the adults, to create emotional reactions. Throughout chapter 4, the Baroque, from revolution in the church to revolutions in the U.S. and France to the Industrial Revolution, published by Cal State University, Northridge, it became apparent the Reformation, Counter-Reformation, and 30 Years' War greatly influenced Baroque art. Situations during the Reformation greatly favored the wealthy and powerful, with artistic works appearing more bland, with the Bible used as inspiration. The social divide of the times created numerous conflicts. The Catholic Church, through the Council of Trent, responded to the political, social, and religious divide by coming up with new religious orders. These new orders mix religious spiritually with interest in other cultures and people. The easiest way to educate all socio-economic levels was through the arts. During this time, Western Europe, with the exception of England, battled for religious and political ground during what is known as the 30 Years' War. The long, slow war, coupled with the Counter-Reformation, finally gave way to a sense of unity and belonging. People started focusing more on real emotions and going against the norms. The Baroque artistic period grasps a hold of these ideas with works showing a strong sense of movement, fulfilling a supporting role. Contemporary musical work during this era depicts similar aesthetics or artistic goals. As pointed out by George Littlechild in Vivaldi in the Four Seasons Resource Kit, the Four Seasons, composed by Antonio Vivaldi, uses contrast as a dramatic element throughout the piece. In autumn, Vivaldi plays the first movement in in allegro or fast tempo, then switch to a slower, more adagio tempo in the second. This switch in tempo leaves listeners with a real sense of emotion meant to calm and fascinate the human mind. The same abrupt tempo switch is made in spring. Although the dynamics change is more abrupt, this change is meant to bring about the ability to motivate or inspire the spirit within the listeners. The other two seasons sustain the audience emotionally and mentally by offering a sense of surprise. Summer is a sharp contrast of timbres between violins and cellos, shortly into the beginning of the piece. This sharp contrast is meant to clear the emotions of listeners and draw them essentially back into the piece. As listeners are drawn back in, Vivaldi creates overwhelming emotions with sustained chord for 8 pulses, before moving on to the next. Each new chord is a surprise or a new emotion in winter. Similar to the graphic art in musical pieces of the Baroque period, the written word of the time period is extravagant, heavily ornamented, and bizarre. In the book The Baroque Literature and Culture in the 17th Century Europe, written by Peter Screen, many authors relied on rhetorical sophistication, excess, and play on words. For example, so perfect and complete was my ignorance, that it was impossible for me to know that I knew nothing. This piece was written by Hans Jacob Christoph von Grimmelshausen in a book called Simpliciusism. Using rhetorical sophistication, excess, and play on words, von Grimmelshausen psychologically engages the reader by inspiring them to analyze the meaning of the words. Using many descriptive words, the author creates bizarre and extravagant scenes in the mind's eye, inspiring readers to challenge traditional thoughts and ideas. Baroque era witnessed several changes in the artistic world. By analyzing, researching, and understanding the political, social, and historical events during the period, one can better understand what inspired artists to create these pieces. Composers, painters, and writers all had specific communicational goals and traits in mind while working. Each piece, after having the understanding of what was behind it, stretches the emotions, spirits, and attitudes of the human mind. And these are just some of my resources that I've used.